Waves by C. Don McCallum. Chapter 4. Mia watched Gerlain's hands pull stones from the dust and set them in his bucket. He worked fast all that morning and hadn't said a word. Nobody asked what was wrong with him, but Mia could feel their eyes looking at him, wondering. They must have been too tired to ask why, she thought, or they thought it was a sign of something else. They probably thought she was troubled by what had happened that morning. They didn't know about the note, about what it said. Gerlain's eyes darted around as his hands flew through the rubble. The field kept drawing his attention, and he'd look at his mother. When he'd catch her eye, she'd smile at his unmoved face, his troubled and searching eyes. Her face seemed to show that she knew something was wrong with her son, but she didn't ask either. She was just glad that he was here, alive and able to work. Mia followed his eyes and tried to keep up with his hands. The mounds of rubble hadn't decreased this quickly since the quakes first started, and there were people trapped underneath it all. Mia saw Tora look up to the sky. The sun was almost at midday. She would be calling for a volunteer soon to get food from the storehouse. Picking up his bucket full of stones, Gerlain looked at Mia. She could see his mind churning behind his blue eyes. She could almost feel him thinking, all the energy just below the surface. Had he told her everything Perla wrote in her note? It was so easy for him to lie to Mensha today on the road and yesterday at the care tent. But why would he keep something from her? They were friends. He was going to marry her twin sister before the world took her. But he lies. And I steal. Maybe we are for each other after all. Perla would never do anything like that. Everything she did made everyone happy always. Mia's bucket, with Gerlain's help, filled. He stood and looked at his mother, sorting the good stones from the bad by the side of the road. Motioning to Mia to pick up her bucket and carry it down behind him, he took up his bucket of rocks and walked down the rubble. Their feet shifted and slipped under the unsteady mound, but they stood their ground. Mother, Gerlain said in a quiet voice, Mia and I will go to the storehouse if you like. Tora smiled. Her eyes were red and puffy. She must cry every night after Gerlain leaves for the wilderness, Mia thought. Try to be a little quicker than yesterday, his mother said as they set their buckets down in front of her and headed to the road. The sound of the children sifting through the rubble faded behind them as they walked toward the storehouse. Take the storybook to my tent, Gerlain told her without looking at her. I'll put it in a safe place tonight on my way to the wilderness. He turned to the storehouse, and she walked ahead to the tent village. Stopping on the gravel path, she listened for the sound of anyone walking among the tents. It was silent. She walked on to his tent and paused again to listen and look for anyone who might see her going into a tent that wasn't hers. The punishment for trespassing wouldn't be as severe in these days since every hand was needed. She snuck under the flap into the musty tent. In the darkness, she made out a pallet on each side of the tent. Mia walked to the one with the blankets thrown haphazardly up over a pillow. Gerlain's hat, the one he wore in the chilling season, lay in the corner next to it, so she walked the pile of blankets on the floor. Taking the storybook out from under her belt, Mia kneeled and pulled back the blankets. She looked at the book one last time. Caressing its cover, she opened the pages and ran her eyes over the drawings, the words that her father knew, the whole village for the past 233 great seasons of the tree had loved. She would probably never hold it again. Mia shoved the book under his pillow and started to leave, but the softness of this place where he laid his head until the wilderness called to him at night drew her hands to it. She lifted the pillow and held it to her chest, squeezing it. Holding her nose to it, the pillow smelled like him, and she breathed everything in that she could. This was as close as I'll ever get, she thought. Her heart felt light and heavy at the same time. Hugging his pillow once more, she looked at the book on his blankets, covered it with his pillow, and pulled the blankets up. Tora's words echoed in her head about getting back sooner than yesterday, and she took one quick look around the dark tent. At the tent flap, Mia listened to the road to see if it was crunching under someone's feet outside. Only the wind made noise as it rippled the canvas. She snuck under the tent flap and into the noonday sun. Looking toward the storehouse, she didn't see Gerlain yet. He should be done gathering food by now, she thought. Maybe he was waiting for her in there to tell her something. Maybe he was going to tell her what the rest of Perla's note said. Mia stopped to think. Should I go to the storehouse or should I wait to join him as he passes this way? But what was that noise behind her? The crunching of gravel on the path. Mia's heart was in her throat. She looked over her shoulder. Ulsa was walking toward her. In the quick glimpse she stole of the woman, Mia couldn't read the look on her face. Did she see me coming out of Gerlain's tent? Her face was hot with fear. I guess I'll find out if I hear about it from Mencha. But what if Mencha tells my mother? Should I explain to Ulsa why I was in there? No, that would be admitting something. And I couldn't lie to her. I shouldn't. Don't explain anything, Mia told herself. Just walk. Find Gerlain and help him carry the food back to the rubble. At least I'm rid of the book. But can I trust Gerlain to do the right thing with it? What if he went somewhere other than the storehouse? Can I trust him at all? Mia watched the villagers pull nets from the river. The fish bent their bodies back and forth, trying to swim through the air they couldn't understand. Their gills pulsed, seeking water that wouldn't come. I know how they feel, Mia thought. Over the roar of the water, she heard Tora telling the story again, the lie Gerlain told her this morning, to his own mother. He sleeps better in the wilderness, you know, Tora said. He was trying to get to sleep when he had this strange feeling. Mia didn't want to listen to the lie, and the rumors that hung in the air like the smell of fish dying on the shore in front of her. Looking out at the wilderness on the other side of the river, she wondered if any of the villagers had ever explored the trees waving at her now in the wind. She'd never heard of anyone going across the river. He saw someone moving in the field, and he heard a low whisper calling Mia's name. For some reason, the villagers were afraid of the water. Maybe it was something they'd heard about it, one of the stories from the old book. Mia couldn't remember anything telling them to stay away from water, but she didn't always pay attention like she should. Mia was sleepwalking in the field when he found her. The river rolled past from somewhere unseen, going to some unknown destination. Mia wished the fish could talk. She'd ask them where the river started. Were there other villages along the river? Where was the water taking them? What would they do when they got there? He tried to follow her to the mouth of the world to find where it was. But she woke up, and the mouth was silent. Pulling the last of the nets, the villagers grabbed at the dying fish and tossed them into their baskets. Mia helped them, remembering the way the scales used to feel on her hands before they grew calloused from the excavations. She wondered if her hands would be soft again. Could they get any rougher? I guess the field will go unworked this season, Gulva said. You won't find me out there working with the mouth out there, Childers said. The baskets were growing full of tonight's dinner. What I don't understand is why nobody's heard the mouth calling before, Moda asked. Why did Gerlain hear it this time? Is there some reason why Mia was saved but not the others? For once Tora was quiet, and Mia felt their eyes sneaking looks at her as she helped roll up the net. She wanted to tell them the truth. She wanted to tell them about the note and why she was really out there in the field. She wanted to tell them about the wolf, and that they shouldn't worry about working in the field. The lies were getting too numerous to sort out any more, though. She wouldn't know where to start. Then Tora spoke. He's already lost Perla. He couldn't lose Mia, too. For a moment, Mia's heart soared on the clouds, rushing over the village. She soaked in the oranges, stroking the sky on the other side of the river, until she remembered it wasn't true. Her hands leaked apologies and thanks with every fish she tossed into her bucket. Instead, she let them cast their looks her way in wonder and hoped the lies would stop. Mia put the fish bones in the bag as the villagers looked at each other over the cook fire flames. But she was glad it was her turn for her to clean up. She didn't want to be alone. At the same time, she wanted to go back to her tent to go to sleep. Maybe the world would call her name tonight, like Gerlain had told the people today. But he'd better not wake her up if he sees her. She wouldn't be out here if it weren't for him. His eyes told her across the evening fire that he had something to say tonight as the villagers talked. There was no way she could miss it, even if it were only more lies. Mia walked around the fire, picking up food scraps as she went. The renewal season was always full of promise of delicious fruits from the orchard and grains and vegetables from the field, but not anymore. She was sick of fish and the way they were going. It didn't look like there would be any vegetables this year. Gerlain raised his hand, and the eyes of the older villagers looked to him. You have something to say, Gerlain? Mencha asked, pulling her wrinkled hands onto her lap. Someone needs to keep watch at night, he said, his eyes blazing as brightly as the flame he faced. Until we find a way to make the world's mouth quiet, we need to at least keep people from the lips. We need to keep the people from being swallowed before none of us are left. Mencha pursed her lips and sighed. And how would you propose we do that? We don't even know if it can be done. She scanned the faces around the fire, faces she'd watched grow from infancy to the worn visages surrounding her now. We can't even seem to find anyone to work the field to give us food, and you expect. I did it this morning, Gerlain interrupted. Mia's chest tightened. I will do it. I am already out there at night. I don't sleep in the tents. I will keep watch. Quiet, the villagers looked at each other. Mia could see the questions in their eyes. Is he capable? What if he falls asleep? What if the wolves get him? What choice do we have? Mia looked at the silent lips, the talking eyes, and picked up the last of the plates. What was he doing? He knew she hadn't been called to the mouth of the world, but there was something in Perla's note that had made him scared of the field. She'd seen his fear. She felt it herself in her trembling knees. He knew something else. There was more in Perla's note. She knew it. Mia put the refuse in the box and shut the lid on it so it could be taken to the wilderness tomorrow. It appears the village doesn't reject your proposal, Gerlain, Mencha announced. Does the village object to me being relieved of my daytime duties in exchange for my services? He asked. The villagers laughed. Mia started at the unfamiliar sound. It had been so long since there'd been any kind of song around the fire, and laughter was her favorite tune. For a moment, hope snuck into her heart, but it slipped out again as quickly as it came. Gerlain wouldn't be working next to her anymore. What would the world take away from her next? No one raised objections to Gerlain's request. He would watch the field at night. The people would be safe, so the people were happy. He would sleep during the day. Gerlain would be out of Mencha's white hair, so she was happy. Mia rinsed her hands in the bucket of water by the edge of the fire and wiped them on her tunic as she walked to her tent. In the fading fire, she didn't see Tora's face. She didn't see if she was glad that her son wouldn't be near her in the day, that she wouldn't be able to watch him work on the mounds. But Mia knew Tora would be proud of her son. She always was, no matter what he did. His mother had a way of looking at everything Gerlain did in the best light. Taking one last glimpse at the people around the fire, Mia saw Tora's hand running through her son's hair. His mother whispered tenderly in his ear. Gerlain's face revealed nothing. His blank eyes stared at the flames, so soon to be extinguished. Mia pulled back the tent flap and went in. Her mother had left the lamp burning inside for when they came back in the darkness after dinner. She was so tired she didn't know how she was still standing. In a haze, she walked to her pallet and lay down. This was the only part of the day she could look forward to now that she wouldn't be seeing Gerlain on the mounds anymore. Turning on her side, she looked at the place where Perla used to rest at night. Mia felt empty and her heart ached. Why did the world have to take her sister? She didn't know what happened to her, to all of the people who had been swallowed by the world in the night, but she couldn't help thinking that they were the lucky ones. The emptiness of the tent pressed in on her, and all she wanted was to see her sister lying next to her, lips that looked like her only softer moving from the story that flowed through her. Mia picked up Perla's pillow to put it under the blankets and make it look like her sister was there. In the low light of the lamp, she saw it. The storybook. She jerked up in disbelief. Gerlain must have come in here and put the book under Perla's pillow. What was he thinking? She clutched her sister's pillow. Why? Mia missed her sister more than ever. She needed her. She needed Perla to explain to her what was going on, to tell her what she'd discovered and written on the little slip of paper. Nothing made sense anymore. Mia put Perla's pillow under the blanket and tried to pretend her sister was still there, only sleeping. She covered the storybook, but the motionless pillow under the blankets just reminded her that her sister was no longer moving in this world. Deep inside, she heard an ominous stomping that was her heart. Thank you for listening to Chapter 4 of Waves by C. Don McCallum. If you're enjoying this story, please consider sharing it with someone you know. And please like the video and subscribe to this channel to help others discover these stories.